Okay, well, welcome everyone. I think we're good to get started, so let's do that. Hi, so let's kick off with our webinar. We're focusing today on no-fuss strategies, how to retain retail holiday shoppers. So the aim of the session today is really to arm you with strategies and ideas to help keep the holiday shoppers coming back to you, even after the holiday season has calmed down. I think we can all agree that the peak holiday season is really important to many of us, especially some of the brands that have dialed in today. We often speak and spend a lot of our time, money and resources on the acquisition part rather than retention, which can often become an afterthought, especially when in a competitive market. It should be at the forefront during the holiday season for sure. So before we begin, just a quick point for everyone that's dialed in. If you do have any questions for me or the other speakers, please feel free to put them in the chat and we'll aim to get to them near the end of the session. But if for whatever reason we're unable to answer those questions, we'll come back to you with an answer via email. Okay, so before we dig in, let me introduce myself. I'm Shalini. I've been with MoEngage for coming up to 3 years now, and I manage the marketing function at MoEngage across the UK and Europe. So for those that don't know MoEngage, we are a leading insights-led customer engagement platform whereby we empower marketers and product owners with insights into customer behavior and also with the ability to engage customers right across the web, mobile, email, social, and messaging channels. And we work with well over 1,200 brands globally, such as Flipkart, Domino's, Nestle, Deutsche Telekom, and Travelodge. So I'll take a minute to hand over the mic to our wonderful speakers. Jan, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Shal. Hello, everybody. I'm Gianfranco. And the best part of my career, about 20 years I've spent agency side, always in the CRM, data, loyalty, and personalization space, where I've been lucky enough to spend time working with some amazing brands, BMW, Disney, Compare the Market, EasyJet, to name but a few. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, I made the move to, I don't know whether it's the dark side or the light side, but I went to work brand side. And I had the opportunity to work with the Natura & Co group. And at the time, 4 amazing brands in the group, Aesop, where I was global head of CRM, The Body Shop, A1 International, and Natura Latin America. So I was global head of CRM for Aesop for about 2.5 years. Went to work at Group for a year, overseeing CRM and personalization for those 4 amazing brands. And then the last 9 months at Avon, where I've been helping them through their CRM and personalization strategy and tech development. And here I am today. Over to you, Sam.
Hey everybody, I'm Sam Panzer, the Director of Industry Strategy here at Talon One. So we're a loyalty and promotions engine. So we're on the tech side to evaluate, to bring in all the data that you need to run better incentives. But I run our professional services consulting kind of function with our customers, more thinking about, okay, where are you trying to get to in terms of acquisition or retention? What should your loyalty program look like? So more on the advisory capacity, but latched on to a really good technology company here in Berlin. We work with mostly retailers, so Adidas, Eddie Bauer, Reebok, River Island, but a lot of kind of other growth companies with some kind of loyalty or retention play. So Live Nation, Ticketmaster, Afterpay, pretty good book of logos. So have some perspective from working directly with those brands over my 5 years here at Talon One. Excited to get into it here.
Great stuff. All right. So before we get into the crux of the conversation, let's just take a quick look at the agenda and the points that we'll be covering today. So we'll first kick off with an insight into some of the shopping behavior trends that we're seeing for 2023, and then discuss some of the retention strategies that myself, Jan, and Sam feel would be beneficial to the listeners on the session today. Take a few minutes really to discuss about Gen AI and how marketers can utilize Gen AI, especially during the holiday season. And then it'll be over to Sam to talk a little bit about the EU pricing directive. And finally, hopefully we've got some time to take some of the questions that are coming through as well. Great. So just taking a look at some of the holiday shopping trends that we've been seeing. So some really interesting stats that are in front of you. I think the one that I was slightly surprised about was 24% of shoppers worldwide would finish shopping by mid-October. I don't know how many of you joined early, but I was just saying to Sam and Jan that I've already had to buy my very first Christmas ornament over the weekend, so maybe I do fall partly into that category. Outside of those, I think some of the other interesting stats there is, 98% of shoppers would be willing to order from a brand again, especially if they offered fast and convenient returns. The increase that we're seeing, 4.5% increase on retail spending that's expected this holiday season. 29% in UK itself saying that they're going to take advantage of the post-holiday sales. And then 80% of under 35 consumers valuing personalized recommendations, and 47% for those over 35. So some really interesting stats there. I think when I look at those stats, just thinking about the numbers that we're seeing, especially those that are prepping much earlier, I'd like to hear from Sam and Jan. Do you guys think this is mainly because of Amazon Prime, Black Friday, Cyber Monday? How do you think brands are going to be taking advantage of the offers that are there? I'd love to get your thoughts on those areas.
Yeah, I mean, good for the people who are going to be finished already by mid-October, first of all. I mean, yeah, commendable. But yeah, I mean, I think that one thing I pay a lot of attention to with my customers is just kind of generally where is the consumer. And obviously it's, we haven't had a normal year in years, but thinking about kind of, where is spending and all that as we head into the holiday season, and what will that do to spend behavior is interesting. I mean, from a US perspective, you've got a bunch of stuff going on. So, credit card delinquencies are on the rise. Student loan payments have started for something like 40 million Americans. So there are a couple kind of things that indicate that consumers are chilling. Dollar store spend is increasing towards grocery, which is an indicator that customers are, shifting more of their spend focus on necessities, right? So I don't know how proactive that will make consumers in terms of, okay, if I'm feeling the pinch, does that make me shop earlier? Me personally, that would make me shop later because I would procrastinate. But really curious to kind of see how that shakes out. And definitely kind of seeing the same thing where consumers are maybe more price sensitive than they might have been, even last year, where there's a little bit more optimism in at least some markets. But obviously, one of those things really need to know exactly, what consumers are you talking about? Because when I talk about these abstract things, they verge on the meaningless, but are still helpful indicators of where the overall market is. What about you, Gianfranco?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that Amazon in particular have reconfigured the way that shoppers think these days, whether that be level of customer service, the speed of delivery, timing of shopping. So I think that Amazon and the whole Black Friday, Cyber Monday thing has changed the mindset of customers. And if I talk specifically about the UK for sure, I think that what happened during, I know we're past COVID, past pandemic, hopefully, but I think that what happened there, in particular around stock availability and not getting deliveries in time before Christmas, again, that's reconfigured the way that shoppers are thinking about when they should be buying. Mm-hmm. And just touching on Sam's point around the mindset of the customer around disposable income, I think that if this is the opportunity for customers to get their Christmas deals, to get their Christmas products in and out of the way at the right price, obviously that's part of that mindset. And also I think that probably there's a few sectors in the UK where people have delayed their spend because of the economic climate. So they're kind of thinking, well, right, this may not be me shopping for Christmas, but this is where I'm taking the opportunity to look at what I've delayed my spending on, whether that might be electrical goods or furniture, and use Black Friday and Cyber Monday as my opportunity to do that. So I think that there's a whole bunch of different factors that are playing on a customer's mind at the moment. And I think that it's not just completing the shopping by the end of October. I think that customers are now spending more time researching. I think that's one of the stats that came through as well, which was people are spending more time making sure that the product is right for them and that the price is right for them as well. So yeah, a whole bunch of stuff that's contributing to these numbers.
Yeah, some really interesting points there, guys. I'd say the other one that I was really interested by was the 80% stat that we're seeing on the screen at the moment. So 80% of under 35 consumers valuing personalized recommendations, and 47% for those over the age of 35. I think brands can no longer afford to ignore this fact, and the importance of personalized recommendations for consumers. I can give my own example here. I'd gone into a high-end goods store. They had spent a lot of time taking my details down when I'd made a purchase. You almost felt, like a bit of a VIP, I guess, when they were taking all your details. And they made it clear that to get our emails, you have to make a purchase, which I was very excited by. So lo and behold, my frustration 2-3 weeks later, when the email I received from them is actually a recommendation of the very product I'd gone to their store to purchase. So I think there's some easy fixes there, I feel, that brands can put in place to ensure that it's the right type of recommendation or the right type of content that's being viewed by the consumer at any given time.
Yeah, it's a classic one. I mean, I think the bad examples are always so much easier. I remember for Prime Day this year in Amazon, my main just for you offers were women's swimming shoes and a car seat. I'm a childless, carless man in a landlocked city, so it was like missing on every kind of persona graphic they could have done on me. The one brand that did it pretty well is we bought a Dyson last year on Black Friday, so it was like the most intensive I've ever seen my wife think to kind of navigate like the Dyson deals around Black Friday, because they do a lot of kind of unveiling things gradually and sort of gamified things. But then what I liked is the recommendations for accessories afterwards, because you're not just buying a $800 vacuum here, you're changing your entire lifestyle to revolve around your Dyson that now blasts dust off your apartment floor with the laser beam, whatever ours does. So it really took some pleasure in that. But ultimately, I don't know. I just finished a great book, The Person in Personalization by David Manheim, which talks a lot about this, that that one of his banner things in it is that every year is the year of personalization, but no year is. And it's definitely probably the most unfulfilled promise in marketing. And it still feels like attention should mostly be, okay, let's clean up the really messy stuff like the lake shoes and the car seats, and recommending people the offers that they just bought an item of. So those sorts of things.
Yeah, it's interesting how different brands do it. Jan, did you want to add something here?
Yeah, no, I think that recommendations and whether you call it recommendations, personalization, optimization, segment customization. I know David has a bit of a rant about that as well. So I agree. And actually, to me, it doesn't matter to me what we call it. I think it's about understanding what the customer is trying to do, right? So that it's personalization without purpose is pointless. Is my mantra. And I think it's about understanding what the customer is trying to do at that point of the customer journey, because I think they may not be ready to buy. They may be in research mode. So actually, how do we deliver the right level of personalization and tailoring of content to make sure that we're not forcing customers, or we're not pushing customers down a particular route when actually they're not ready to go down a particular way of purchasing or thinking. So I think that if we think about recommendation or personalization in its wider context, I think that's where we'll win over the customer. So thinking about not only the right product recommendation, but also the right delivery experience, right? So at the moment, one of the big changes we're seeing in the UK is the way that Marks and Spencers are improving their personalization capability, not just by improving their product recommendations, but also, if I put something in my basket now with M&S, I normally do click and collect. And they make my purchase life so much easier because they realize that in general, I do click and collect rather than getting it delivered. They also know the store that I normally do my click and collect from. So that is the first option that I get when I go to my basket. And that's perfect in terms of, they're beginning to understand me and as a shopper. So actually during this period where I'm probably busy, trying to sort out my Christmas gifts, perhaps, companies that are using personalization to that extent, I think will undoubtedly win that weekend. Although these days it's no longer a weekend, is it? It's a whole fortnight or a whole month. And then I think in terms of recommendations and personalization, I remember a nice little thing that we did when I was at ESOP, which we're coming up to gifting season. And one of the things that obviously you don't know about is the gift recipient. So I think it was in 2020, the 4 gift sets that we had at the time, each had a short story that was related to that gift set. And we did a very simple thing, which was we added a QR code to the gift set. So as a recipient, you could scan the QR code and it would take you to our website where you could download the audio or the text of the book. But it brought you to our website, and all of a sudden, because we knew the products that were in the gift set that you'd received, we could give you recommendations as to how to use those products. So you're getting closer to the brand, you're using the product correctly. And of course, you're on our website, we're being helpful to you. It's about customer service. You're going to register for more information. You're going to register for more content from the brand. So it's about not just that weekend, but it's actually how you use personalization to make sure that you're keeping those customers, right? So whether they are a first-time customer, a repeat customer, or a recipient of something that's been purchased over that weekend, it's how you use data and personalization and recommendations in the right way so that you're maximizing that weekend. It's not about the uplift you get just on that weekend.
I love the way that you guys had done that with ASOP. I think you hit on something really interesting, which is the first-time purchases as well. And I think we've all been there. We've not bought for ourselves. We've bought for a friend or a partner or someone else. And then the content that we start receiving from the said brand is all based on that one purchase. But you think, if I take my husband, he's not going to want a beautiful necklace or a bracelet. So he's not the person that those should be going to. It should be going to me. But this is the example you gave is a great way that brands can evolve the communication there.
Yeah, and Amazon are, they fall for that as well. They're good in many ways. But last year, my wife for Christmas bought me a book entitled "This Is How Your Marriage Ends," and so for the next 2 months, I think it was a subtle hint or less than subtle hint. For 2 months, I was getting marriage guidance books from Amazon offered to me. So, because she bought it on my account, right? That was the issue. Just to rub salt into the wounds.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, let's move on to the actual retention tactics and strategies that are available. I think at the moment there's so many things that as marketers we can put in place that can often be quite confusing to know which strategy to go ahead with. So what we don't want to do is to add confusion during this session. So we'll primarily stick to the webinar's main theme of no fuss and also holiday shoppers related strategies. So I guess Sam, let's kick off with you. So in the last year in 2022, one thing that we saw was discounts and deals were very much the hero of the holiday shopping season, and discounts were being offered for a longer period of time and also for a larger discount amount. I know that was primarily down to inflation, or at least partly was. But I'd like to understand, how do you feel that will fare this year? Do you think the discount strategies that brands can employ are going to be helpful for not just maximizing the customer acquisition part, but also the basket value and the retention side of things after the holiday season?
Yeah, a big story in last year too is that retailers were just stuffed to the gills with stuff after supply chain sprang back into gear after COVID and consumer demand chilled a little bit. So a lot of it was you had to run discounts to move inventory. This year it's you have to run discounts to to nurture demand and stuff. But ultimately I think that what's missing in either of those approaches is a sense of discount discipline. There's a great saying from Chloe Thomas, an e-commerce consultant and expert, that promotions exist to get the customer to do what you want as cheaply as possible. And I think that so often marketers just end up doing, basically casting a huge dragnet over their entire website with like a really broad, pretty deep discount. Sometimes businesses justify that by setting a base price that nobody's ever paid, but that those fake discounts are illegal in the European Union and frowned upon, at least in the US and UK. But what I see a lot is that discounts are just kind of they're addictive. Like if you have a bunch of CRM managers who are rewarded for opens and revenue, and they're able to run discounts, and they're going to use discounts to juice the numbers they're measured on, right? So discounts are a hammer that make everything in your marketing domain start to look like a nail, right? So you just start hitting things with discounts because you think that that's the best way to address a deeper problem or to chase a customer that you're probably best off not chasing. There are customers or there are people who might do business with your brand. You're never going to make money. So there's a lot of that right now of customers who are frequent returners, who only shop with discounts, who are using, buy now, pay later, and then returning things. ASOS is a really good example of this. They found that 6% of their customers cost them 100 million pounds a year, which is like 3% of their total revenue. So basically enough to tip the entire business into the red, just from 6% of their customers, right? They published that in an earnings call, I think like 4 months ago. So they've started to clean that up. So they've started charging more for some returns in certain markets. They've moved more of their offers to personalized offers instead of site-wide things or category-wide things. And they're also talking about exiting bad customers, which is incredibly hard work to say, you know what, we're okay not doing business with that type of customer because we're not going to make money. And it is working for them. Their order profitability has increased 35% year over year, just with a couple months of focusing on this. So that's kind of where I spend most of my time focusing with our customers. How do you move your investment with customers into more of a long-term play? So obviously, if you have a loyalty scheme, can you move things into that and use that as your marketing vehicle, where your best offers are delivered in a loyalty construct where you can have really good degree of confidence that you're going to drive good long-term outcomes. A lot of times we come with customers and we focus on, okay, you're doing these really broad discounts. How do we just start help wean your consumers off that without making too much of a mess of demand while you're improving margin? So Eddie Bauer is a great example of that. They went through some ownership changes in the US and kind of a heritage outdoor brand, but then really got hooked on discounts, right? So our focus to them has been to taper off of that, and they've been able to shift some of their offer types and drive 7% margin uplift on promoted baskets with some of the changes we've put in place. Obviously you're best off with really good technology and a really cohesive strategy to do all that, but ultimately I think it also just comes down to really getting the organization to think more critically about discounts as a cost to the business. And you can even think about, okay, if you discount something by 20% and your margin is like 60%, you don't just, so 20% discount, you don't just sell 20% more stuff and break even. You need to do way more than that to maintain your profit and your revenue, right? So there's frameworks like that, but I think there's kind of an educational piece to the folks that are actually configuring your campaigns, and stuff that if you are a CRM manager configuring the campaigns, I think it's a really good way to kind of level up your career too, to be able to think more like a disciplined business person on these things. So a couple things that come to mind there, but obviously a huge topic. But ultimately, I think just recognizing that discounts are, they're addictive because they work, but is working meaningful to the business?
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. I think one interesting thing that I've seen in the past few years is the spotlight that goes on brands that are no longer taking part on Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And they're now changing their strategy in, you know, what else can they do around that peak season outside of just the heavy discounts that people are expecting. It could be other value adds that are being brought in as well that they're now looking at. So yeah, you're right. It's a conversation which has many facets to it for sure. I think let's talk a little bit about multi-channel for a bit, which, you know, is also another key area of focus, especially for a lot of the brands that have dialed in today and for brands in general when it comes to the holiday season. So, Sam, I guess coming back to you here real quickly, but when it comes to the multi-channel part, what are your thoughts with what else brands can be doing here?
Yeah, I think you know it's also helpful to think about what's your omni-channel strategy. So what do you really want to be consistent regardless of the channel, and what kind of experiences do you want to kind of be able to move between channels seamlessly? But then it's still important to keep some discipline around the multi-channel piece, that you have different consumer types shopping in your different channels. So being able to kind of think, you know, okay, whatever in this channel you know, we don't want to run a certain discount type or something, or we don't want to cater to those you know, those more discount expectant users. So I think that, you know, it taps more into kind of hard to kind of talk about specific examples. I mean, it's always a focus for us of like, yeah, what is omni-channel versus what are you kind of running independently your channels? And ultimately, I think it comes down to like having a really good picture of like what are the nudges that you're trying to make with promotions and with your incentives, your loyalty benefits. And I kind of like to kind of have the design more from, okay, what are in your business, like, is it possible just to brainstorm out a couple dozen, okay, if we have consumers that come to us and they buy makeup, what's like a reasonable place that we want to get that consumer? If you're selling multiple goods, is it dresses or something? Like what are kind of like the journeys like that? And think about the investment of like, okay, if you nudge people to different categories or something, is that worth it? And same thing with the in-store, you know, okay, if you know that your in-store customers spend more time or spend more money, maybe it is worth investing in somebody who's online only to then come in store. So Twinset's a good customer of ours where they have, you know, mix of like boutique in-store, and then a more general online presence, right? So kind of thinking about, okay, we have a discount sensitive online only shopper. The in-store experience is more boutique, you know, in person. But yeah, is it worth nudging them towards that with an incentive or something in a loyalty context? John, I'm sure you've seen that from the brand side too. So I don't know if you had anything to add there.
Yeah, no, of course. No, I think that you're right. I think you touched on it earlier as well. It's about how brands become smarter with, you know, if discounting is part of the DNA, and it's difficult to remove that once you're in that cycle. But you can definitely be smarter about how you apply discounting and reward. So I think that thinking about that cross category piece, right? I think it's, you know, if you're being smart about how you're personalizing offers and discounts to individuals, you know, if I'm trying to nudge someone from being a skincare customer to a body care customer as well, actually, is there a nudge I can offer in that category to move them across there? I think that data these days allows you to be smarter about the products that you might need to shift. Yeah, so I know that a couple of fashion brands that I've worked with, you know, smarter around the level of discount I might need to give to a pink polo shirt as opposed to a red polo shirt, and whether I need to offer a discount online or in store. I think that people are becoming smarter around that as well. And to your point around, you know, whether you're running a loyalty scheme or a rewards mechanism, how do you intertwine what you're doing with discounts or incentives? Let's call it incentives over this period, in line with your loyalty program, right? So does it have to be discounts, right? Could it be an acceleration of point collection, right? Could it be as a loyalty member, actually you get a slightly earlier access to the product? But I know that, you know, for example, I know that some of the work that we've done in the group, we've seen that the loyalty programs that we've run, if you're smart about how you use the data, not only do you get an increase in customer lifetime value from a loyalty program, but actually you diminish the appetite for discounting, because you're talking to customers at the right time. And you know they've run out of shower gel, right? So that immediate prompt for them to buy a shower gel kind of, right, I'm going to buy it now. I'm not necessarily going to wait for a 10% discount. So I think the way that we use data needs to be a lot smarter. If you're not in the discount space, which luckily when I was at ESOP, for 35 years we never offered a discount, and so don't get me wrong, we would every year, well, for the 3 years that I was there, we would have that conversation with the local marketeers because they wanted to offer a discount because the other brands were doing it, right? Other brands in the group, competitors, but also you'd see our products on third-party digital sites being discounted. So, but we stuck fast, right? And I think that in the end it pays off because we ended up not diluting the brand because it's not what the brand stood for. In fact, ESOP was the only place where I've had a strategy meeting where this conversation didn't get laughed out of the room. I actually suggested that over Black Friday we increased prices, and any increase margin that we made went to charity. So imagine, there aren't many brands that would tolerate that conversation. Well, having said that, I did leave 3 months later, so maybe there was a link between that. And
That's a great story. I've always admired ASOP for that because they've the brand has maintained that discipline for a long time despite it being this addictive shiny thing. We just had some use cases go live with Sephora this morning of kind of like more of a challenge based thing that as they kind of ramp up their Q4 marketing. But it's all about like, okay, completing certain challenges for point benefits more so than just getting straight discounts. There's discounts in there as well, but really kind of leaning more on the loyalty point structure. Maybe I can just read this. I just saw there's a really good question from Ishan. Thank you. How can I offer discount personalized for a first-time user on my website while they're visiting my website? I don't have a strong marker purchase intent there, or is it fair to say that this is more relevant for retargeting and remarketing? Yeah, it's a great question. I generally think that the acquisition discounts are okay. Maybe it's worth it for you to associate that with a newsletter subscription or a loyalty program enrollment or something like that. But if you're not setting yourself up to market to that user on an ongoing basis, then is that one session enough to break even? I think that for a lot of brands, like in addition to the other acquisition costs, to then add a discount on top of that, if you're not driving significant increase in demand, that's kind of the thinking of like, okay, is this really worth it? And I think in a lot of brands, they do things like that where it's not worth it. Certainly can be worth it, but I'll share this kind of calculator of like what you need to increase your volume by to make a discount, to run a discount that maintains profit and margin, because it's a helpful way to kind of approach that question. But John, maybe you have something to add there.
Yeah, no, again, it's just how do you want the customer to enter the relationship with the brand? If they're entering through a discounting, through an offer, you need to be careful with how you manage that relationship. I used to work for a subscription service, and we often knew from which it was TV sports broadcasters, and we knew from which competitor the brand, the customer, the new subscriber came from, and if they came from another brand that was renowned for their deals, they often came to us because of the deal that we offered. And so the way that we talked to that customer for the next 6 months was predicated on the fact that we knew that they were a deal-seeking customer. Whereas other customers that came to us from a brand that was renowned for content, and they came to us because of a content proposition, again, we talked to them in a slightly different way for the next 6 months. And so again, it's you need to follow through with understanding where that customer has come from, and if they're coming off a discount, what do you do as a follow-up to wean them off that discount and make sure that they stay with you as a customer that's not desperate for a discount every time they purchase. Yeah.
Jan, I hope that answers your question for you. There's some great insights that have been given both by Jan and Sam on that point. Thank you, guys. So I think I'd love to chat, Jan, just a little bit about social media. I think we can all agree that increasingly we're seeing brands invest a lot more when it comes to social media, especially around the holiday season, partly to help boost the conversions and the repeat purchases, and also I guess, you know, the first time purchases too. What are your suggestions here on what brands can add when it comes to the social media strategy to help them get those repeat customers, the conversions that they're hoping for?
Well, so I guess it depends. You know, again, it's horses for courses. I think you need to try and understand the relationship you have with your prospects and customers on social media, right? So why do they follow you on social media? Are they following you because you predominantly talk about your social values on that channel? If that's the case, that might not be the right channel for you to start selling product on. Yeah, but if you already have a commerce presence on social, then actually, yes, you should, you know, between now and Black Friday, Cyber Monday, obviously increasing your presence there, increasing the conversation around what's going to happen over the next few weeks, and continue to build that sense of community and buzz that social media offers you. But then not forgetting that there are other channels in the mix as well, right? So making sure that, you know, all brands now have an armory of channels that they can use, but it's making sure that you use the right channel for the right purpose, understanding what your customer wants. Right? So if it's email to deliver those product recommendations that are tailored to a customer, great. If it's website, to make sure that you can personalize on the fly based on engagement on the website at that moment in time, great. You know, WhatsApp, to deepen the relationship and provide great customer service before and after making the purchase. SMS, you know, SMS is great to almost drive that instant purchase, right? So I think that SMS is renowned that, you know, if you hit people at the right time, and I'm pretty sure I saw a stat the other day that said that actually Cyber Monday works really, really well for SMS as opposed to Black Friday, but it's more likely to drive that instant sale because it's there, you know, and it's opened almost immediately and actioned upon. So again, it's making sure that you use the right channel for your customers and how they use those channels with you.
Yeah, some great advice there. I think just listening to everything that we've covered, whether it's on the multi-channel side, you know, social and such, data really does come at the center of all of this, right? And having that data accessible when it comes to your customers, their behavior, the preferences and interests and so on, so that brands can really take that advantage that's available to them to run successful holiday marketing campaigns. So I think, you know, for those that are on the call, if you are able to put together different sources of data together to get that 360-degree view of your customers, that's really going to help you identify that right message that you want to send, the right channel, and optimizing these levers to engage with your customers in the most relevant way, right channel, right time, as we were saying.
Yeah, and I just add as well that, but it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Because I think that if you try and not do anything until everything is aligned and everything's perfect, you'll never do anything. So actually, if there's only a couple of things you could be doing next month, do them in preparation for the next peak period, which is probably January sales, and then what's come up with spring and summer. And so you're always building on capability. If you don't start, you'll never get anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the kind of pragmatic areas I pay a lot of attention to with our customers too, is just, okay, what data do you even have available to run in the incentive side? So just to be clear, like I always talk about promotions and incentives, and I love the conversation about the other marketing, but you know, kind of my only skill set is really in the promotion side. And oftentimes brands don't even have the data to do, you know, a pink versus red polo activation or something like that we were talking about earlier, right? So I think that if you're kind of, you know, especially if you're a marketing leader and trying to figure out, okay, why aren't we able to operationalize better things? Some kind of audit of like, okay, what's actually available in your tooling today, and how painful is it to get other data to run in an incentive to do things based on customer data, or do things based on inventory or whatever else it might be. Because it's kind of one of those things that doesn't really get good visibility all across the org chart. but really worth studying. So that's always kind of our focus, like how do we actually make sure that you have more data sets available in your promotional incentives or loyalty incentives as well.
And Sam, taking that back to understanding what's the problem you're trying to fix, right? Because as you suggested earlier, during COVID, it was I needed to shift all this stock that all of a sudden appeared in my warehouses. So I think it's understanding, driving that back to what's the business problem I'm trying to solve. I think that conversation becomes a lot easier, I think.
Absolutely. Okay, I think I want to talk about Gen I for a little bit. The topic that's on everyone's minds at the moment. Jan, I'd love to hear from you here. What impact do you think Gen I is going to have on holiday shopping? And do you feel brands can benefit from Gen I during this season and also post-holiday season?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just to take a step back just for a minute. I mean, we've always been using, not always, for a long time now, but we have been using AI to help with our marketing, right? Whether that be modeling of segments, customer behavior, understanding how customers are behaving, product recommendations. It's all about understanding those using models to understand behaviors and patterns. I think that what Gen I, obviously, generative AI allows us to do is to create content, right? So I think that being able to create content at speed with a greater sense of agility than we had a year ago is something that will absolutely help marketeers during this period, right? In particular, where I think that marketeers will succeed over this period, not just because of the pre-built campaigns that they've got in mind, but actually how do they react to changes over that weekend, to things that come left field, right? So actually, how in that case, Gen AI these days can certainly support you in terms of, right, I quickly need to create a segment of customers that I need to put a proposition through to. Great. How do I use Gen I then to create the right content, whether that be the imagery that I need, a subject line, or copy the the keywords that need to appear in my text message or my email. I think that these days that can be done pretty much on the fly, right? And you can almost have create a campaign out within hours rather than within days. So I think that Gen I, and even get to the stage where I think that Gen I will help you create customer journeys on the fly, right? So understanding, here's my target audience, here's my proposition, this is the message I want to get out there. What's the best combination of channels that I should be doing to send this content out, and at what time as well, and then drive usable insights on the back of that, rather than just looking at the data that it gives me. How can I use generative AI to pick out the insights that I can build on and action as a result of that? So I think if you're using the right tools, I think that's certainly something that will help marketeers this period. You're smiling, Shal. Why are you smiling?
Sounds like you're talking about MoEngage there for a while. But I would say on that point that whatever platform the listeners are using at the moment, but customer engagement as a platform, it should be able to help you in these areas. And when it comes to AI, someone mentioned, AI is a glorified assistant, but I beg to differ slightly. I think, yes, it can definitely help you free up time to help you do what you love, and help you with the right type of campaigns during the holiday season, just as an example. But it should really be able to help you to take things further. What are the positives and the negatives of the campaigns? What is the performance like? But giving you that very clear picture with great ease, so that iteration can keep continuing, so the ROI is there for the campaigns as you move forward.
But I think that, calling it a glorified assistant is actually, that's not a bad thing, right? Because I think but I think that it's still now it is still about the mix of man and machine, right? It's about how we can work with AI, and not take everything it gives you as read, right? But have that critical view in terms of what it presents to you, and making sure that you apply a little bit of common sense to that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that human intervention is really important for
100%.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great stuff. Okay. I think I'd like us to talk a little bit when it comes to the EU pricing directive. So, Sam, we've got a few attendees that have joined today from within EU. Would love for you to tell us a bit more about the current EU price directive and really what you think brands should be aware of in this regard, and what the latest is.
Yeah, great. This is really boring stuff. But really important. So I need to figure out how to do this in like song and dance so it's more fun. But it's basically the price indication directive is some new legislation in the European Union that says that any announced price reduction, so any discount, needs to also indicate the prior price in the last 30 days. So that if you go from 100 euro to 80 euro, you need, you can't just say that it's 20 euro off. You also need to say, okay, was this previously offered at 90 euro in the last 30 days, right? It's all about weeding out fake discounts is the intent of the legislation. But two things I call out. First, this is relevant for anybody who's trading into the European Union, regardless of where your domicile is. So if you're a UK business that's shipping, even to Ireland or something, like you need to be compliant with EU consumers, right? The second point is that the fine structure for it is very, very close to GDPR, so 4% of turnover. So it's a huge fine structure. The first class action suits are just circulating through Europe, has the same kind of classic EU thing where every member state can add their own spin to how they interpret it. So there's tons of headaches in this, but it's more just kind of something that we really try to emphasize. Hey, this is important. You need to be compliant, because if consumers can, suspect that you're non-compliant, they can file a complaint, which will lead to an audit and possibly fines. So no fines have been administered yet, though it's only been in effect since the year or so. I think it went into effect in May 2022, but basically everybody ignored it for the first year or so. So happy to always kind of talk through exactly what that means and what technical approaches look like. A lot of brands are just handling it in that, okay, we don't change price twice within a 30-day window. That'll probably work. But if you're a retailer whoever does kind of like fake previous prices, inflate the previous price and say it's a discount, but it's not real, that's non-compliant and can get you in trouble. So that's yeah, a little bit on that topic, but there's a lot to it, and definitely if you're doing any business in the EU, something to make sure your team is bulletproofed.
Thanks, Sam. We have had a question come through. Sam, if okay, I'll stay with you for a minute. So how is your perception of the use of discounts in different contexts, such as South America, the American market, etc.? Do you think it applies the same way as you discussed today?
Yeah, no, I mean, no is the short answer. That there's tons of market context and how consumers think about value, and if it's more of a negotiation-driven culture where discounts are expected. Discounting and pricing are extremely cultural topics. So, for me as an American living in Germany for 5 years, I mostly think about the European or German especially versus the US context, because Germans are, extremely focused on saving. It's like a total cultural virtue here. Germans save like twice as much as their income as Americans or as British folks, but and they just kind of sit on it in a bank account, like they don't really invest it either. So there's tons of difference in like how consumers think about saving. And also kind of, obviously like in mobile first cultures where most of the first, touching the internet came from mobile devices, there's a lot more culture there around gamification and kind of this idea that you can earn towards value is more of an expectation. So tons of cultural context. I'm not an expert on the South American market at all, but definitely something to kind of think about, and also make sure that you're, if you're global, think about, okay, what's our global approach on a loyalty program or our promotional approach or whatever it might be, and also making sure that the experts in your business on the markets that you trade in are empowered to do things that'll work in their market without going down the rabbit hole of getting addicted to discounts because it's an easy way to juice revenue, right? So really hard question, but definitely no, there's no one global playbook for discounts and incentives.
Sam, I completely agree with that. When we're at ESOP, there are certain things I think that you can dictate from a global perspective, but in reality, it is the local teams that know their markets best of all. So you need to give them some flexibility in the way that they apply the brand in that market, understanding the context. 100% agree with you.
Thanks both for answering and taking that question. Okay, so I hope at that given point, everyone has been inspired by the session. There's some interesting insights that you've gathered, some strategies that you can take away with you. We will move on to some additional questions in a minute, but I just wanted to point out that we'll be launching a new ebook soon. It's called The Easy Ways to Keep Holiday Shoppers and Increase Revenue, in partnership with our friends at Talon One as well. The link should be going there soon, so please do click on that to join the wait list, and we'll get that over to you soon. All right, just moving on to some of the additional questions that have come through. Let's take a look. Jan, question for you. So how do you know which marketing channels to prioritize or use for your campaigns? What would you suggest there?
I should unmute before answering any questions. Schoolboy error. You understood your customer, right? So you spent time talking to customers, understanding how they're behaving, and you spent some time testing those environments, right? So I think that it's easy to kind of go in and assume that you know the channels that you need to use for your particular customers at particular times of the year. But in reality, that evolves, and customer behavior evolves. So I think you need to be on a constant learning curve with this, understanding what channels work for what purpose. So I think that, but if at the outset you go into all of your marketing activities, all of your business activities with the customer front of mind, if you understand your customer as well as you can, questions like level of discounting, recommendations, the channels that you should be using, it becomes a lot easier to deploy those with a greater degree of accuracy. But it's never going to be 100%. You're always going to have to live and learn about how to apply, how to use those channels.
Thanks, Jan. Another question that we've got come through. Let's see. How should one go about A/B testing discounts? Will that not erode the trust that customers putting into the brand if they find out that they got a different discount versus someone else? Sam, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, it's a non-zero risk that's worth thinking about. In my mind, the risk of running overbroad discounts and the threat that poses to your margin is a great enough upside of addressing that risk, that the smaller risk of frustrating some customers for unfair discounts is relevant. I think for most businesses for most industries, there's going to be some consumer familiarity with dynamic pricing or shifting pricing or different people getting different benefits. So it's also industry specific, but there's really interesting stuff happening. I feel like the UK is kind of leading the way here for whatever reason, with dynamic pricing too. So it's good to kind of look at, okay, how are consumers reacting to that? John, I don't know if you remember the pub chain or Cellini that just announced like a surcharge on Fridays and weekends or something like that. So I think that, look at how consumers are reacting in your industry or in your market. But ultimately, in my mind, there are much bigger risks that you can address by A/B testing and by trying different things with different customers, compared to a very small risk that customers will notice and be frustrated with the perceived unfairness.
Thanks, Sam. That's really appreciated there. I think I'm going to see if we can squeeze 2 more questions in, guys, that have come through. So I've got one here for transactional messaging. Jan, do you want to take this one? How critical is it to get transactional messaging right, especially around the holidays?
100%. You need, it's just as important, if not more important, than your traditional marketing messages. I think that in terms of the brands that win out on customer service, they deliver the best customer service, will win out eventually. Because I think even if you get things wrong, if the messaging that you apply to your transactional messages lets the customer know, when something is going to be delivered, whether something has all of a sudden become out of stock, right? I think that expected delivery dates. I think that transactional messaging is often not misunderstood, but ignored by marketeers because they think it belongs to someone else. But I think if you have, again, putting customer front and center, experience almost out trumps product in some instances. Because you can buy the same product from different places, but it's customer experience and the way that you handle those transactional moments that can win out 100%. And particularly over this period where things are going to be busy, right? So keeping your customer informed around expected delivery dates is really important, I think. And also because and don't forget that you now have the opportunity to brand those transactional messages, right? So it doesn't have to come, particular delivery messages don't have to be branded by the delivery company, right? So I think as a brand, if you begin to own that messaging as well, as soon as the brand marketeers see that your logo is now appearing on that messaging, they'll take notice. Right? They'll start worrying more about transactional as opposed to just marketing messages.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you there. I think it's such an important part. Even if I put myself in the consumer's shoes, those that are especially time poor, or the individual in the household that's doing the gift shopping for everyone, they are so keen just to get the gifts ticked off their list, make their lives easier, give them the information that they need, in a clear, concise manner. And I think you're right. It's nicer to see the entire journey of, the ordering part from the brand rather than the multiple delivery partners and such. It's less confusing, and I think you're only going to make your brand more sticky and show additional value to the consumer at the end of the day.
I remember I did some work with a grocery home delivery company, and we knew the things that we could get wrong and the things that we couldn't get wrong. So if we delivered a dodgy cucumber, the customer would forgive us. If we missed the delivery slot by an hour and we hadn't told the customer, right, that's it, because I've just lost an hour of my life that I'll never get back. You can replace a dodgy cucumber or give me an extra euro back, right? But I think so that's where, transactional messaging becomes really important, because I'm not going to send you a text to say that the cucumber's not fit for purpose, but I should tell you that I'm going to be late, right? Because you can change the delivery slot or come and pick up in store instead. So I think that transactional is becoming more and more important. Absolutely.
Yeah, with you there. Okay, I think we have time just for a quick answer to this question. In terms of engagement, is WhatsApp better than SMS? How can we increase engagement through these channels? Jan, I'm going to put you on the spot, see if you can answer that in 30
I think WhatsApp is amazing but I think WhatsApp is amazing for that one-to-one deeper relationship, right? Where you know there's a human at the other end, or hopefully there's a human at the other end, right? Who can solve a problem. I was talking to a holiday company last week who specialize in family holidays, and they know that the parents are not doing this until the kids go to sleep, 7-8 o'clock at night. And at that moment in time, they want to interact with a human to make sure that they're getting the right advice about the holiday that they want to book. And WhatsApp I think is brilliant for that. And then you can, certainly migrate someone onto how to make it easier for you to purchase on the back of that WhatsApp conversation. SMS, I think, is much more transactional, right? I think it's much more around something's arriving, I'm late. Here's a deal. Click on this now to get this deal. It's much more about in the moment getting something done. WhatsApp I think is much more about relationship building.
Yeah, absolutely. It is that one-to-one component that's really important there. Great. Well, I think we're coming up to time here. So I think, time is definitely going to tell us how the holiday season is going to unravel this season. our best advice would be really ensure that your customers are at the front and center when it comes to your e-commerce strategy, whether it's the offers you're providing, the discounts, the value add, or the omnichannel experience. Really find that way of putting the customer first, because that's going to be the real key to help you stand out this holiday season. Just a quick update from the MoEngage team. We will be hosting our Growth Summit London event that will be taking place on 19th of October. If you are based in the UK, please do join us. A member of my team will post a link shortly. We will be talking about retention strategies there as well, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions you may have as well. So thank you everyone so much for joining us today. And of course, thank you to our speakers, Jan and Sam, for sharing their knowledge and thoughts. We really appreciate the time that you've put in and for giving up your valuable time to join today. For everyone else, we'll provide the recording soon. Meanwhile, please enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you all so much.
Great fun. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks all.